Good evening and welcome to DWN. Today is not going to be a normal broadcast. You see, two of the biggest problems of today's society are COVID-19's impact on small businesses and the ongoing problem of systemic racism. This week, instead of a normal broadcast, I sat down with co-owner of Alloy Personal Training for Women, Anthony Wilkins, to have a talk about systemic racism and owning a business during this time.
What has it been like for you the past few months with COVID and systemic racism being the main talk of the world?
First with COVID, business owner, gym owner, it's one of those things where you have to figure out, as soon as everything goes down, you have to try to save the business. Because gyms were closed down, at least here, for a month. So it's figuring out how to best service the clients, save the business, stay safe, keep morale up, even with people who aren't able to come to the gym in general. So it's been pretty interesting, taxing. Add to that another layer, or many layers, of systemic racism and police brutality and everything that comes along with social justice. It's a tricky minefield to navigate because, of course, that's what's in my heart, but of course you have to navigate that as a business owner. Some people are scared to broach the topic because of that, but for me, I feel there's no other way around it. It's something that's important to me, my family, and people that honestly look like me, so I can't do anything but speak about
Better than staying silent.
it. Yes.
What's the biggest thing people misunderstand about systemic racism?
That it's over. It's one of those things, it's that it's over, or that since it hasn't happened to them, maybe not directly, that it doesn't actually exist. So I hear a lot of people talk about the fact that slavery ended hundreds of years ago, so therefore it's no longer an issue. Well, the problem with that is all the systems that were put in place back then that have been carried forth till now still affect people of color, black people, the same, if not worse, sometimes better, oftentimes better. So they can't be ignored.
What do you feel as a society that we can help eliminate racism?
Well, first, I think, honestly, I don't think we're ever going to eliminate it. There are going to be people who that is just who they are, who they want to be. They want to look at someone based on the color of their skin, the things they may have heard on the news or heard from even family, and take that and run with it as the truth. So eliminate, I wouldn't say we're going to do, but we can change the perspective of how people view things by continuously educating ourselves and just honestly just talking to someone who doesn't look like you to get their own experience of America, because we're all Americans, but we don't have the same American experience.
Having the conversation is the biggest part. And a follow-up to that is, what personally are you doing to help it out?
Starting with educating. And again, it's kind of you look at it from a business perspective and you look at it, do I want to put myself out there, possibly hurt my brand, hurt my business? Well, the way I look at it is the people who are for me will be for me. So if someone can't look at me and say, yes, from a humanity standpoint, you matter, the people who look like you matter, then that might not be my target audience in the first place. So I'm not going to be silent. I also, at the same time, am not going to push things onto people who aren't interested, at least right now, because everyone they're not all ready for this kind of conversation. Like you said, they are uncomfortable. There are things that people either may not have known, they either have known and kind of brushed under the rug, and they're not ready to address them. But I'm going to keep chipping away to keep making change.
It's hard as a journalist because you want to say something about it, but you're always told not to express your opinion and keep it silent. So I'm doing my best to try to reach out and have these kind of interviews and bring it up as a topic to do my part, even though I can't personally say, like, this is what I believe.
Right. The objective part.
Systemic racism has been happening for years, so why do you think it's now that people are starting to talk about it?
It's one of those things where it was never a now talk about it. It's always been talked about, but in a situation where it doesn't get mass coverage all the time, or even when the smaller incidents do get covered, people become numb to it, just like so many other things in the world. You hear about it over and over and over, and people become, every time something new happens, it becomes less of a rarity. So it's like, okay, it's happening again, we'll just let it go away, let it die away, and then we'll just move on to our normal lives. Well, for black people, honestly, we're just tired and exhausted of saying, look, it's happening again and again. We need to do something, but not having people not listen is the issue.
Do you think the effect of being in quarantine with COVID has kind of influenced that topic?
Yeah, because we were forced to be inside. So what did we do inside? We were on social media, we were watching the news, we were talking to each other. Imagine that, talking to other people. Actually face to face because we were in the house with them. So that has almost like kind of helped, and at some places it kind of hurt, especially when things like peaceful protests turn into riots and looting, which is not, it doesn't help the cause. But when it's focused on the media and then people see it over and over, they start to blend everything together. So people being home, unemployment being high, people were desperate for various things, and they put that all together and it just exploded.
Have you or a family member ever been in a situation where there was systemic racism?
I mean, in short, the answer is yes. I mean, that could be just as simple as applying for a job and being looked over based on the fact that someone just looks at either you or maybe hearing your name or saying, okay, I'm just not going to look in that direction because they can't possibly be qualified. Racist things, I mean, I was a football manager for Temple University. Back in the 90s, we would travel to different schools, and that made sense. Well, I was at West Virginia, in West Virginia, to play against West Virginia, and just being out one time and hearing the words N-word, go home. It's blatant. That's right in your face. It's like, okay, West Virginia's not for me. So it's like, that's overt racism. But the covert stuff happens over and over, whether you follow down the aisle at the store, if you're just going in the shop. You have no interest other than going into the store like any other patron, but you get treated as if you are the enemy from the second you look at the store. So, yes, it happens.
What's your reaction when that kind of thing happens out in public? Do you say something or just kind of let it go by?
Depending on what it is. In the store example, it's one of those where, I mean, I know what I'm there for. I know what's in my heart, so I'm coming to patronize the store. Sometimes if it's in a position where it makes me so uncomfortable or the people I'm with uncomfortable, then I realize that might not be the store I need to shop at. When it's over and someone's yelling, it's like, okay, I need to keep myself safe. So in that case, it made me leaving where I'm at to, again, be safe and just get on.
It's sad that just going to the grocery store can be so life-threatening.
Yeah.
Who's one person that has impacted civil rights that have kind of impacted you and you've admired?
There's not just one, but it's when you were talking, when you sent me the question, I thought about it, and it's funny because I'm sitting here in front of the Rosa Parks. That, when I came here, I looked at that, I'm like, that makes sense to me because I was never an activist, never wanted to be an activist. I just kind of showed up at a rally to see what it was about, and I was called on stage to speak by a friend, and that felt natural. So it feels natural to do it, and it's just back to being tired. And again, I don't think for me personally it's going to change drastically in my lifetime, but I do it for my son, his lifetime, or anybody else who feels like they don't have a voice. So I don't even look at it for me. I look at it for those who would want that help that just aren't in a position to get it.
You've gone to many different places talking about civil rights and systemic racism. What was the most impactful speech you gave?
Definitely the one in Sewanee Town Center. Again, it wasn't planned. I just kind of wanted to go there with my son, my wife, just to have him experience it. We can experience a rally at a peaceful place and have him understand that there are things we fight for in the world that we truly believe in. And then again, I was just called up and I figured it was my place to be there. So I said, you know what, I can't just not do this. I need to be the example for, again, my own child and many of the people in the audience. So that was, it was unscripted and it just came from me.
Has anyone ever come up to you after your speech and just said how much you impacted them?
Yes, especially that day. So I had a few people who, not only that day, but and a couple other days being around the city of Sewanee, they may have recognized me for being up there. Because a lot of people just honestly don't like public speaking. I don't mind speaking. I mean, I love getting in front of people and talking and educating people. But I wanted to get, for me, it was just getting the passion that was in my heart out there. And it's awesome to hear that even those short amount of words just help somebody else.
What's one thing you want viewers to take away from this?
we're not all right. Anything we may have learned, and I say we, especially me, I mean, there are things I've grown up learning or thinking I've known, and I just don't know all the details. I've never heard of some things, and one thing that comes to mind was just Juneteenth. Like, a lot of people were saying, well, how come we never heard this before? Well, it's been there. Like, slavery ended. We know that. There are dates for that. The last people to find out that slavery ended, which is the celebration of Juneteenth, was there. It wasn't made a national holiday in the U.S., but there are a lot of things in the U.S. that just simply aren't taught in school for history. So it actually happened. It exists, but I think we need to keep talking to each other to learn more about what's the reality of the world.
Bringing up the conversation is the main thing right now, at least I think. And being able to sit down and talk to people like this, I think that's the first step to kind of making the world better.
I agree, 100%.
Well, thank you for sitting down with me and joining us today.
Very welcome.
That's all for this week. Another special thank you to Anthony Wilkins for sitting down and having a conversation with me about systemic racism. I know I learned a lot, and I hope you did as well. I'm your host, Danielle Dubois, and I'll see you next time.